Using an adjustable zig can be a really effective way to catch carp, especially on deeper waters. But why would you use an adjustable zig over the conventional zig? Well, for me, there are three main reasons. The first reason relates to the playing and landing of a fish. Let's say, for instance, you're fishing a water that has depths in excess of 20 foot. If you wanted to position a bait high up in that water and you were to use a conventional zig, not only are you going to have trouble casting that zig, but when it comes to landing the fish, you're not going to be able to position yourself close enough to the water to actually get the fish in the landing net. However, when you use an adjustable zig, on the take, the lead is going to slide down to the zig float and you're going to be playing the carp on a much more comfortable length of line. Now, the second reason I love using an adjustable zig is that it allows me to fish at different depths throughout the water column without the need for actually having to tie a new rig. Simply by paying off some line or retrieving more line on my reel, I'm able to increase the depth or lower the depth very easily. And the final reason why I love using an adjustable zig over the conventional zig is that it allows me to easily position my hook bait inches below the surface without the need to actually plumb the depth of my swim using a marker float. So what I do is cast out and I slowly let my zig float to the top of the water column. I'll then place my rod and reel on the rest and slowly start to retrieve line on my reel by turning the spool. I then keep a really careful eye on the top of the coloured band on the adjustable zig float. Our zig floats actually come with two coloured bands, an orange and a black, which are appropriate for different light conditions on the day. And as soon as I see that coloured band dip below the surface, I then know that the only line left on the surface is the length of my hook link. By using a 4-foot zig section, I believe it creates enough separation between the zig float and hook bait as to not spook the fish. And it also means that I'm able to play fish comfortably and makes casting easier as well. By then turning the spool on my reel, I'm able to measure myself, retrieving line in foot intervals. After I've retrieved 4 foot, I know that my hook bait is now positioned just under the surface, and any additional line I retrieve is going to be the exact distance in which my hook bait is positioned below the surface. This means that I can be super accurate with the placement of my hook bait, which at certain times of the year can make all the difference. Now I'm going to walk you through exactly how I set it up. Now let's start with the rig end section first. All you're really doing is attaching a conventional zig rig to the top of your adjustable zig float. So the first thing I do is take a spool of 10-pound zig float and create an overhand knot to form my hair. I then slide on my chosen hook bait. My number one choice is usually a piece of black foam, but you can use a variety of things such as another colour of foam or a trimmed down pop-up. After sliding on my hook bait, I then take my spool of zig float and measure around 5 foot using my tackle box. I usually take a foot or so more of what I actually need, as this gives me a little bit more to play with when forming the rest of the rig. I then take my chosen hook, and for me, when it comes to zig fishing, it's always a floater claw. I'll then form my knotless knot and make sure that the hook bait is really tight to the shank of the hook. Due to the slightly inturned eye on a floater claw, you can often find that the gape of the hook is actually reduced. So to combat this, I always slide a piece of zig aligner tube over the eye, which increases the gape and improves hooking potential. It's at this point I'll then slide on a hook link sleeve, measure the depth back to 4 foot and secure this in place using a figure of 8 loop knot. And that's exactly how you tie the zig section, and I'll now talk you through exactly how to set up the zig float. What I do is, taking the line from the tip eye of my rod, is slide the chunky metal O-ring supplied in our adjustable zig floats. I'll then slide the line through the thin end of the zig float, making sure it's passed all the way through the middle of the body, and then tie on a quick chain swivel. I'll then pull the quick chain swivel into the top of the zig float to secure it in place. All you have to do then is attach a lead to the chunky O-ring of the float section, followed by clipping on your rig, sliding the hook link sleeve over the quick chain swivel, and you're good to go. Adjustable zig rigs by themselves can be quite prone to tangles. However, there is a little trick you can use to help eradicate this. In order to prevent my hook bait from wrapping around the zig float, I take a piece of PVA tape and tie it around the top of the zig float section itself. After securing the PVA tape in place with a couple of overhand granny knots, I then simply take the hook and nick it through both of the tag ends. I then know that when I cast that out, there is no way that that hook is able to travel up past the zig float and wrap around anything it shouldn't be. So that's how I tie and set up an adjustable zig rig. It's caught me loads of carp over the years when perhaps other methods wouldn't, and they're always going to be a tool in my armoury.